everybody, and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. We're back here again. Come on in. Come on, my 2 subscribers. Sit down. We're here. We're here together. ZakIsCinema. If you find yourself just so lonely and desperate to talk about your end of the year ranking list, the movies that you discovered in 2024, and have just nobody to talk to about these kind of things, well, you have found the right place, buddy. ZakIsCinema, we're waiting for ya. I was kind of just trying to think of another end of the year kind of ranking video I could do, but I thought it would be kind of cool to talk about some of my favorite movies that I discovered in 2024. This is similar to the first time watch review segment, movies I haven't seen before up until this year. So any movie that wasn't released in 2024, but that I finally sat down and watched in 2024. So this list in particular is in no particular order. I find it kind of difficult to rank movies from completely different decades, different genres, stuff like that. Just no particular order. Just 5 movies that I watched for the first time in 2024. So jumping in, number 5, we got Strange Darling. So I saw this movie in 2024, but it technically released in 2023, very limited, but I was able to see it in a theater in 2024. Strange Darling was honestly an amazing movie, and honestly such a unique experience watching this absolutely blind. I heard just some buzz about it online. The poster kind of looked cool. The cast looked interesting. So I was just like, fuck it. Let me check it out. That's it. Didn't watch a trailer, didn't read into it, and it was such a unique experience. It has a thrilling cat and mouse type movie that helps to elevate this movie by playing around with your expectations and your personal biases, but also all of that adds to the many twists and turns in this movie that keep elevating it even further. I love how this movie actually utilizes its title cards in the movie. It's divided up into chapters, and sometimes you get some pretentious bullshit movie that just like had nothing really to set this apart. Let's throw a title card or chapter cards in. But this movie actually utilizes it. It feels like it was written like a chapter book, like written like a novel, and uses these chapters because the story is told in a non-linear fashion. So you almost kind of need the chapters to help better track along this movie and this story that it's telling. And it helps to add to the twist by jumping back and forth as you get different perspectives, get new information, helps you reframe what you just saw and what you're gonna see. I appreciated that. I thought they were used nicely. I thought it was a cool detail. It's where each chapter, divided up by the chapter cards, leaves off with a cliffhanger and twist, very similar to what a book might do. It's unique because it leaves off of that cliffhanger and twist that is not only twisting what you just saw, but it's reframing the previous chapters and then reframing what your expectations are moving forward. It's very interesting, and I feel like for myself, I haven't seen a movie do it exactly like this. I'm positive there's movies out there like that. I just haven't seen them. This movie honestly has a great soundtrack with songs that add more to each scene, play off previous dialogues and conversations as well. It's a thrilling and haunting musical score, and they got this really cool character and villain theme music whenever a particular character is on screen. It just felt like a haunting version of something like Hans Zimmer might write up in the studio or something. Could have been annoying, it could have been over the top, but it rides that line very nice. It's an intense thriller, fantastic pacing, and a thriller that takes time to fleshes out its small little world and its characters and the relationships that they have, different relationships that they have in each different chapter. I like how the movie has like this hypnotic feel to it. Almost one of those movies where you really can't tell the time, the place where this took place, the time period. Like, feels like our world. That's not our world, if that makes sense. It draws you in, especially with just like the quirkiness and uniqueness it brings to this movie, especially with a lot of our characters. Like if you've seen it like with the mountain people, some of the police officers, and our two main leads. Everyone has their unique style that doesn't really fit our reality and just helps make this movie that much more memorable. There's an awesome movie that had me like hooked. Like one of those movies where you're just watching it, you're already hooked, and then as soon as you get to that first like mini twist, you're like, oh shit. This is what we're doing, and then you keep getting that oh shit moment throughout the movie. It was a movie that I didn't really have any expectations for, but I was really, really happy that I decided to check it out. Go in as blind as possible. I already forced my fucking friend to watch this, and basically just like watching him the whole time, like, did you get it? He didn't enjoy that much, but whatever. He's a piece of shit, but that's okay. That's my number 5, Strange Darling. Jumping into number 4, we got Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Now, this is such a unique and interesting movie. I've heard about this movie before. I like the Halloween movies. I just never checked this one out because it has that reputation, right, of being that Halloween movie that's so different and never has Michael Myers in the movie, which is such a strange idea looking back on it now, because a movie like this would never, ever get made today, ever. Like, that's if you made like Iron Man 1 and 2, and then the third one, you're like, let's focus on Tony Stark's like wife and her Iron Man suit adventures. And we just won't have Iron Man in it, but we'll call it Iron Man. It would be like that. Like, no one would do something like that today. It's interesting reading the backstory of this movie, where they plan on just having Halloween 1 and 2, and then moving forward, it'd be an anthology series every Halloween, every other Halloween, an anthology horror series where the main premise just centers around Halloween night. And it'd be different stories, different characters each movie. And I kind of wish we got to see that play out a bit, because this is a really interesting concept, and there's a lot you could do that just centers around like Halloween week, Halloween night. It's a horror movie with a thriller, sci-fi, bit of witchcraft edge and themes to it that make it not only stand out by itself, but in our Halloween franchise too. Another positive or thing I enjoyed about this movie is it's almost like Terrifier 3. It doesn't shy away from showing like harm towards children and families. You know, ZakIsCinema's favorite thing over here. I've mentioned it in like a couple videos. It's kind of concerning. It never, just like Terrifier 3, it never goes to the point where it's like too far and where it just kind of sours the experience and makes it unenjoyable. And because it never goes too far, it doesn't take away from my enjoyment and still helps with its tension and with the threat level of our villain. It just felt to me very hypnotic. It had a hypnotic feel to it, song, music, but it's even better as it introduces our mystery that is just as interesting. Kind of similar to Strange Darling, where it just kind of like hooks you instantly and you're in. It starts off with a really creepy and gripping opening that introduces our mystery right away. So you get this guy that's coming into the hospital, like gripping one of these like children Halloween masks that just looks a little bit off, and the dude is a little bit crazy. And then he's like murdered by a dude in like a Men in Black kind of esque suit, comes in, murders him, and then just like walks out of the hospital and just like lights himself on fire in front of the car. Not only does it just like make the town have this mysterious edge to it, makes the mask part of the mystery, and makes the character that was just killed part of the mystery, and the character who just killed him and then killed himself part of the mystery as well. Like all these creepy sci-fi elements into it right within the first couple minutes. The movie stalls out a little bit in the middle, but it starts strong and ends strong in my opinion. One thing I always appreciate looking back on movies like this that are much older than I am is just how crazy and over the top a lot of them go. Like with this movie, this premise is crazy. Diverting your Halloween franchise to make this crazy movie, so crazy and over the top, outlandish sci-fi elements in this horror movie, fits that tone right. Like it never takes me out of the movie, never feels too crazy for itself. Like it sets everything up right and it pays it off and just like fits that Halloween 80s vibe that they're going for. the story and plot is just kind of crazy if you hear it written out on paper. Like, this company is making masks with a computer chip in it. Then their plan is to start airing out these like hypnotic commercials with this theme song that activates something in the chip that causes whoever's wearing it, mostly children, who are wearing it, and their like head starts to rot like a pumpkin that's been left outside for well past Halloween. You hear that's crazy and seems kind of like silly, goofy almost, but it works for this movie. And I also love the ending. I love horror movies that just have the balls and again don't pull back on just having a somewhat depressing ending. And I think what makes this a little bit unique, especially in the Halloween franchise, is our character succeeds in most of his mission but can't get everything perfect, and then the company gets to send its final message out as he's just left screaming on the phone telling someone to turn it off, stop airing this thing, you're gonna kill all the children in this town. A movie that just it's not afraid to just leave off like that. You get the satisfying conclusion because he did everything he could, he mostly succeeded, but there was just one final thing left, and then the villain ends up succeeding. It's a really great movie, held up very well, and I'm glad I finally checked it out. Number 4, Halloween. 3, Season of the Witch. Number 3, we got Frailty. Now, Frailty, unlike what I said in Strange Darling, Frailty is one of those movies I really wish I could have gone into just blind and not knowing anything. It's one of those movies that, at least for me, just like I heard about it, so I kind of knew about the story. So I wish I didn't have some of those expectations going in. But even with those expectations, for me, it was one of those movies that just connected with me on a personal level. One of those movies, one of those pieces of art that just connects with me in that almost a narcissistic way where you're like, I think this movie was written for me. That was just kind of going through my mind in my narcissistic little part of my brain, but like one of those movies that just connects with you like that. And there's very few movies that can do that, and I'm so happy that this is one of them. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen that commentates on religion but doesn't bash it, doesn't bash one side or the other. It's commentating, it's forcing us to reflect, but it's also just showing us, letting us make up our own minds about it. I love how this movie, Frailty, focuses on like a small family. It's packed full of themes of mental illness, generational trauma, religious trauma, dysfunctional households, conflict between siblings and parents. Like, it has so much in it, and it helps with its pacing, but it's still able to explore all of these without feeling overstuffed or that it needed to be a little bit longer. Yeah, similar to Strange Darling as well, is it has a very non-linear storytelling throughout the movie. It has Matthew McConaughey's character, similar to Strange Darling like we were talking about, that adds to the story and makes all the twists and turns hit a little bit harder. Like, it starts off with Matthew McConaughey's character going into this police station, telling his story. We get flashbacks, we jump back to the story that he's telling, and then with each flashback time jump, it's reframing what we just saw, it's reframing what we're gonna be seeing, it's messing with our expectations and makes us feel just as insane as most of the characters in this movie as well. But one of those non-linear storytelling movies that actually has a purpose and adds to the story as well. It's a movie that reframes previous parts and scenes and character decisions in the story, and then one of those movies that just like requires a rewatch, and I've been dying to rewatch this as well. I also like how it's not that graphic of a movie, and I think it adds a lot more to this movie, to this experience. Just realized I had something on my mic. Oh my god, that is so embarrassing. I wonder how long that was there for. Anyways, like I was saying, I like how it's not that graphic, but they instead use situational horror and like character decisions as part of the horrific scenes and stuff going on in this movie. Instead of just like being over the top graphic where it may have come off as like goofy or distasteful, they instead have horrific and like violent scenes, but you only get little glimpses of it. And I think that works for the story that they're telling, but it also gives a great chance for Bill Paxton, who had his directorial debut in this movie, gives him great opportunities to just show characters' reactions that make the horrific scene going on even more intimidating and scary. Not because you get to see all that like gore and the fucked up shit that they're doing, but because you get to feel the weight of the situation by seeing those characters' reactions. There's a great scene where Bill Paxton pushes this dude down the stairs because he was about to escape, and his sons have been like exposing about what's going on, and then he pushes him down the stairs and just starts to like axe the shit out of him. And instead of just showing a dismembered body, which may have turned this into a different style of movie, it instead just shows one of his sons reacting to this and then just like stepping back into the darkness because he doesn't even want to see it, acknowledge what's happening right now. Great memorable scene that really is just elevated by a small decision like that. It's one of those horror movies that has religious undertones, and it has those religious undertones where it's focusing on like Old Testament Christianity and that Old Testament version of God. And I always find that so much more creepier. One, because there's not a lot of movies that do that, and two, it really just like shows that more unforgiving and wrathful side of God that you see more in the Old Testament. And they really play some of that out. They play out some of those beliefs and ideas in this movie. Really just like put me back into a time of like growing up in some of these churches. Like brought me back as to a little scared little child, helpless ZakIsCinema, just cowering. Jesus, it's getting dark. But it's one of those movies that leaves off with so many amazing twists that I feel like it's going to be even better for me the second time, because it's reframing everything that we just saw, and all those twists work perfectly. Lastly, the child actors, Bill Paxton, McConaughey, everyone was amazing. The dialogue was written so well and the acting was so well, especially with those child actors. Everyone brings their top-notch game to this movie and really pulls off this like fantastical story that easily could have been a little bit cheesy, too over the top, too difficult to take serious, but everyone plays it serious. All their acting is fantastic, and again elevates this movie a little bit more. So number 3 coming in, we got Frailty. Number 2, we got Black Christmas, the original one, the 1974 Black Christmas. I've really always wanted to check this movie out because it's one of those like slasher movies that I feel like you might recognize the name. Some people is like, oh shit, yeah, I heard about that, never seen it. But you always hear about movies like Halloween start in that slasher genre. But it was so interesting watching this, going back to this movie, as you can see how it kind of paved the way for movies like Halloween to be made. It starts off with a similar POV shot like the original Halloween movie does, but it does something a little bit different. Has that fishbowl effect. Billy, our villain in this movie, is very chaotic, violent, shaky with that POV shot. It's a little bit different, but you could see the influences on movies like Halloween. My favorite part of this movie that really just stood out and stuck with me is just the character of Billy. And they were able to do so much without really giving him any dialogue. Like, he's not going back and forth with characters. There's not just like a random scene of an old lady being like, I remember Billy when he was younger, let me vomit his story out to you. Like, there's none of that, but you get so much from his character and so much to help elevate this movie. The use of the voice of Billy on these phone calls is so creepy and unsettling, and just kind of, it holds up even to today. I love Billy so much because you never really get to see him except one of those like iconic shots where you just see his eye and like half his face is covered by the shadow and he's just looking all manic and crazy. Like, you get a couple brief moments of him, but it's never enough where it takes away the scariness factor, it takes away that tension. But you really just get to hear his voice, see his chaotic, unruling nature in those POV shots, and that adds a lot to his character. And you also get just enough like lore and backstory on Billy, but again, they do this in such a unique way. When you're getting those POV shots, when you're getting those phone call scenes, all the lore and background information of Billy is like delivered by Billy in these manic phone calls that are just so creepy. Billy is like calling these sorority girls at the sorority house, almost has like multiple personalities, having all that go on in his head right now, and it's just all coming out right into these phone calls. So he's like switching between characters. He's pretending to be like his younger self with like his mom or parent like yelling at him, like saying, "Why would you do this, Billy?" All those small little lines that you can go back and kind of piece together bits and pieces of his story. It's just so unique. Haven't seen like a villain or specifically a slasher villain kind of have his character motivation and backstory revealed to the audience in a way like this that is so unique. He switches characters like within himself, kind of leaving that crumb of lore behind, and I'm just like sitting there behind him chewing up the breadcrumbs, and I'm loving it. It also has such a haunting ending that lingers, that makes you remember and think about it well after you're done watching it, and I feel like the best horror movies do that. And at least in my experience, not a lot of slashers can pull that off, but this one does. The only like slight or negative I can really give to this movie is it doesn't really have, I noticed, like a climax or like a third act kind of, not battle, but like, you know, like a third act, a proper climax. And I think that was done purposefully because of how it leaves off. In my opinion, I still think it could have left off like that, been just as impactful, but had some sort of like third act, a little bit more of a wrap up for our characters, and maybe you could have given us a little something with Billy and then left us off at that same ending. Coming in at number 2, we got Black Christmas. Again, no particular order on this. You're about to see this with my number 1 is like embarrassed almost. Like, stop, guys, stop looking at me. Number 1, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer. Okay, I said it. I watched it. I own this movie too, but I distinctly remember seeing the trailer play on TV for this when I was a kid. For whatever reason, like that concept, the trailer is just like, what the fuck is this movie? Like, that seems insane. And I just always remembered it. I never watched it, but then I'd always just like randomly think about it. Like just like all throughout high school, like English class, I'd be like, oh, like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer. Like, I wonder when I'm going to watch that. But it's one of those special movies, those unique movies where it's just so bad that it is so good. And one of those movies, at least to me, I don't know, I've seen some reviews, some people's opinions when it came out, and I think they kind of missed the point of this fucking movie. Like, I think it's one of those movies that just like knows exactly what it is and is unashamed of it. If you're going in expecting a serious movie or like a movie to really elevate the vampire genre, like, did you not read the title? This is exactly what I thought it would be. The pacing is actually so good in this movie too, because it's just full of just like crazier scenes that keep outdoing each other, and you just want to see where the story goes next. It has a fantastic use of Abraham using his axe as like some sort of lightsaber. You get these cool scenes where he's like whipping it back and forth in slow motion, doing a bunch of like twists and twirls with it. That his axe almost becomes like a part of his character, adding to that cheese factor, adding to that over-the-top nature that this movie's bringing. You get memorable, cool scenes training scenes with Abraham Lincoln as he's in the woods, and then you get this like trainer dude that has a mullet and like red sunglasses, like looking like a over-the-top like hippie Jackie Chan and Karate Kid. Like, it's so goofy, but it knows what it is. Like, you get these training scenes in the woods as this dude like flicks on his glasses and he's like, what makes you angry, Abraham? I want you to take it out on that tree, swing at that tree. It's just so stupid, but it's so good. Oh my God, it's so good. But there's a great climax where there's a literal stampede of horses as Abraham and the main vampire villain climb, ride, jump across the horses. At one point, one throws a horse at someone where Abraham grabs it and then starts to ride that horse in this stampede epic battle between a vampire hunter and vampire. It's insane. The CGI is so goofy and so over the top. You don't even give a shit that it doesn't hold up, because just what you're seeing is things that I don't even think the human brain were supposed to see in the best way possible. Like I was saying, I love how unapologetic it is with its tone, with its campiness. The actors play these absurd characters and premises so deadpan serious, but it almost adds to the enjoyment, adds to that over-the-top vibe, and just you could tell characters are like having fun with this, because in no way was this movie ever meant to be taken seriously, but just having everyone take these scenes kind of seriously, it just like elevates it for me, makes it a little bit funnier, more enjoyable for me. I love how the movie just goes for it, takes this history, throws a fantastical edge into it, and goes for it. Sticks with its R rating, has like these cool, similar slow-mo style training scenes, action scenes, like a mix of Zack Snyder and the Matrix had a baby that directed the movie. It's like a campy, over the top, stupid, but meant to be stupid Quentin Tarantino movie. It's so good. I mean, Abraham Lincoln literally has that axe where he has like a hidden shotgun in it. Like, I really just don't understand like some of the low reviews and the low like Rotten Tomatoes score, and like a lot of the people bashing it when it first came out. The really only thing I can hold against it is I kind of wanted it to be even more crazy. Like, give me more blood, give me more gore, give me more vampire slaying. I think I'm just asking for a sequel. It's based off a book too, which I just kind of found out about, and it's kind of interesting. I heard the book's like a little bit more serious, goes for that different tone if you're more interested in something like that. But the author set out to make this book because he wanted to fill in the gaps of, I guess, like some periods in American history that weren't written about Abraham Lincoln's life. Like, there's sections, years missing in our documentation of what we have in Abraham Lincoln's life. So that's how he snuck in the vampire hunting in it. Like, it's so cool. It's so unique. The movie goes for it. Very interesting concept. And one of those movies that just like, it knew what it was and it delivered on it. So I gotta put my boy Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Slayer, on this list. But yes, so these were, some of my favorite movies, no particular order, that I just discovered, watched for the first time in 2024. Let me know down below. Did you guys watch anything like this, like movies that were not released in 2024, but you just first discovered in 2024? Let me know down below. But yes, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate anybody watching these videos. Thank you so much. Look forward to more ZakIsCinema videos coming very soon. See you guys in the next video.